We're going to install the draw valves. These parts only move up and down, so it's not necessary to remove the O-rings to lubricate them. We're just going to go ahead and put lube on each one of these, right over top of the O-ring. Rub it around to get good coverage. And then there's a little window with a metal post in there. That's where our handle is going to be installed. So this is the front of our door. We want the window facing front out the door, so we can access them later. Next we have our prime plugs. And I can actually lubricate these with pretty much what's left on my finger. And these are used to initially fill up the machine with product after cleaning. There's a design level of mix that goes into that freezing cylinder. And if you look closely at the door, that's this little hole right here. So this plug is plugging up this hole. So when this is installed and I pull up on it, it's going to let air out to let the mix level in and fill up that chamber right to this point. So internally, your freezing cylinder is going to be this full of liquid, and the rest of this air is actually frozen into your product. So getting that mix for the initial freeze so that proper line is very important for operating the machine throughout its cycle till you clean it next time. You go too heavy on the air, it's going to overfreeze. You'll have problems with the mix ejecting from the machine. And if you go too much on the liquid, your product won't look good. So, yep, that's the function of the prime plug. These are the door bearings. They will slide on over the baffle, and there's a flange on the end of this bearing, and that flange goes toward the door. So flange down toward the door. These are door gaskets. They don't move, so lubricant is not required. They just get pinched between the door and the freezing cylinder. Now when these come new in the tune-up kits, they might be a little tight and not want to sit in this groove. The side, it's got a bulb on it, and this side's flat. The bulb goes down into the groove. And if it's not sitting in there nice with the new one, just stretch it like a rubber band, it'll sit in there great. Just gets a little tight after sitting in the packaging. Then I can take my door and install it on the machine. Notice my draw valves are sticking on these paddles. Just push them down a little bit. But the draw valves go underneath these two stainless paddles. I check to make sure I didn't pinch one of my door gaskets. Seems good. I have two different size thumb screws. The tall ones go on the top. I'm going to tighten these diagonally from each other to get an even seal. Now the door will not stay on by itself if it's not screwed on, so don't walk away from it without at least putting in one thumb screw.
You go over the damages real quick and how much they cost.
The freezer door is several $100s, at least $5 if you drop it, or put it through the dishwasher, that could crack it or cause it to become out of spec and ineffective. So no dishwasher. No, these are thumb screws, no wrenches on it. If you strip out these studs, we could screw up the freezing cylinder, and if we have to replace the freezing cylinder, it's actually all one part with the top here, so you're essentially replacing a third of your machine for one stripped out stud. And then the beaters on the inside, they need to be straight, so if those are dropped or bent in any way, it's better to replace than stick them in your machine and ruin that freezing cylinder because it's not straight anymore. Same thing, you'd have to replace essentially the whole top third of your machine. So we will be testing this for leaks with our sanitizer when that step comes around. But we still need to install our draw handles. These screws right here are speed adjustment screws. This little end of the screw acts as a stopper against the freezer door. And if I were to unscrew this and make that shorter, my product will come out faster. And if I was to turn that in, it won't let me open the handle up as much and the product will come out slower. For this machine, we're looking for about 3/4 of an ounce a second. So if you're going faster than that, you can throw off your prime and throw off your product quality. So for proper function, we're doing 3/4 of an ounce, maybe an ounce per 1 second. So one cone, small cone, is 3.5 ounces. If you can picture 1 ounce of product in your head, that's like one swirl on the ice cream cone. So that small cone should take you 3.5 seconds to make. And if you're making it in 2 seconds and you multiply that by 20 cones, you're going to throw off that air to mix ratio and your product's not going to be right. So even if it's painfully seems a little slow, that's its design and don't change it. And these can also accidentally get adjusted in the sink when you're cleaning. So it's good to be aware of that and keep an eyeball on your dispense speeds after each cleaning. The little fork will go through the window on our drive shaft, or excuse me, draw valve, and the retention pin right here will go through the center of the handle. We have our stylus, which will just snap onto the bottom. And then we have our feed tubes and air orifices. This air orifice meters in a design amount of air when it's filling the product from the top. So this will sit on top of our feed tube like this when we're serving product. The mix is going in this hole, the air is going in that hole, and it's feeding the machine through the bottom. So that's when the machine is in auto or the snowflake button. That means we're making ice cream. At night, when we go into standby mode, we're going to flip this tube so then it acts as a plug instead of a feed tube. And that will keep the freezing cylinder and the refrigerated hoppers separate for standby mode. In the morning, you come in, hit the snowflake, let the machine cycle and freeze down, flip your tube, and then you're ready to serve. Same thing the next night, and the next night, and the next night. So for sanitizing, I'm just going to keep this feed tube together and lay it in the top hopper. Make sure the whole thing gets sanitized. This is Sterashine sanitizer and milkstone remover. Recommended sanitizer for machines that use dairy product. It keeps down on the Milkstone. We have 1 scoop. 1 scoop will go to 2.5 gallons, which is the volume of these white buckets from Taylor. You want the water warm so it dissolves the powder, but not so hot that it burns off the sanitizer. So just warm to the touch water. Take our brush and mix it in. If you lay your brush on the top and pour over the bristles, you won't splash yourself with the sanitizer water. That's a pro tip. We want the sanitizer water to touch every surface that's going to touch ice cream mix. So I'm going to brush it up the sides of the hoppers. This black gasket here too. Even the top of my lid. Nice and sanitized. We're going to check for leaks. We have a drip pan in the back. There's some stuff in there, but it's not water. That's what I'm looking for right now. So we can check that again after we let the machine run in the wash mode.